Hey Bandidos, welcome back. Tux here, unusual. I'm with Tito.
I'm coming. Hold your horses.
There you are. We need to talk about something that's been driving the community up the wall. Yup, nerfs. All of your favorite weapons and gear get slapped with a balance hammer, leaving you wondering, how well do the devs understand the community? So trigger warning, I'm not here to sugarcoat things or play the dev fanboy card. Even though I'm a Ubisoft partner, I've made a promise to keep it real with the community. So let's do just that. No delusion, fluffy reviews, just real talk. Roll the intro.
Piece of shit wristwatch.
The Division 2 has once again made its community angry by deflating brand new content with the thing that every player dreads.
Weapon and gear nerfs.
We've been here before, and I'm honestly not surprised to be talking about it again. But it's hard to figure out what the end game is here. Is it a genuine attempt to balance a game overflowing with weapons, gear, and skills? Or is it about purposely creating metas like the Ouroboros to spike player activity just to come back and nerf it later? Whatever the case is, it's clear. The Division 2 devs need a change in philosophy. The cycle of tweaking, saying they're listening to feedback, and then doing the exact same thing again is getting old. Real old. Today, let's dive into what went wrong, why just nerfing or just buffing isn't the answer, and how the fix is actually simpler than people think, and on brand for the Division world.
Piece of shit wristwatch.
Alright, let's keep it simple. Rather than bore you with the numbers and specifics, here's the TLDR. All the popular weapons and gear got nerfed. Why? Because they were popular. It wasn't breaking the game, it wasn't trivializing content, it was just widely used. There is not a unifying vision or philosophy driving this game. It is all reactionary.
Oh, a lot of people are using the weapon. That's not good. Nerf it so less people use it.
Did you ever consider analyzing why the weapon was being used and then figuring out a way to channel that into other changes or updates? I'm not saying that every strong weapon needs to be completely left alone, but this reactionary philosophy, if a lot of people are using something, we better nerf it, well, that doesn't feel like anyone is driving this ship. It feels like you're just bouncing off of data points in a reactionary way. The devs are trying to manage this imaginary line they've drawn in the sand between us and the NPCs. They seem to think it's incredibly fragile. From time to time, they believe gear like Striker or Ouroboros blurs that line, so they nerf it back into balance. Crisis averted, right? Well, fans complain and the toxic defense force jumps in with,
"Oh, you want the game to be easy? Just get good."
But here's the thing. The power gap isn't a delicate line between agents and NPCs. It's a chasm as wide as the Grand Canyon. Even the strongest builds we have don't come close to matching what the NPCs can throw at us or how much damage they can sponge. One bullet from them nearly wipes out an entire armor core. 10 rounds later, your armor's gone while they take headshots from an entire striker team and still march forward like it's nothing. Then they punch you in the face, wipe your squad, and rub it in by teabagging you. Now, every time the devs nerf something, you hear the same old suggestion.
Just buff everything instead.
It's a common argument. Instead of nerfing popular weapons and gear, why not boost the underperforming ones? On the surface, it sounds reasonable, but here's the problem. It's just another reactionary approach, and it won't work for a few key reasons. First off, buffing everything is just the opposite side of the same coin as nerfing. You're still reacting to player behavior rather than following a clear vision or goal. It's a foolhardy hope of getting the game to some mythical unicorn-like balanced state. And even if you buff everything, you end up in the same place. Players combing over everything, finding what they think is the best, and then more players will clamor to whatever has been determined to be the strongest. And whether or not you nerf the standouts or buff the weaklings, it doesn't matter. You get a flattened out meta of weapons, and players will search for the one or the build that is the best. And all you've accomplished in the process is a boring and neutered cascade of gear that all feels basically the same.
Yay, so exciting. Boo.
And the search for a meta weapon is less celebrated because it's like only marginally better than everything else. So what got nerfed?
Oh, you know, just every single fan favorite.
The St. Elmo's AR, the SR1 and SRS snipers, the Banshee SMG, all of the vectors, the Scorpio, the Ouroboros, the D50, the Striker's gear set, specifically the backpack, Obliterate chest talent, Picaro's holster, Grupo, Cheska, Providence, Habsburg, and a lot more. Ironic twist? The nerf patch attracted more discussions than the actual Season 2.0 content.
Go figure.
Here's the thing. The more you nerf stuff, the more players feel disillusioned, and the more they bounce. If there's one thing gamers excel at, it's letting you know when you've messed up. We're at the point, well, again, where negative reviews are outpacing positive ones. A quick scroll through the comments and you'll see things like the game has been gutted or the devs just hate fun. And judging by the bleeding player numbers, they're not wrong, and you'll see this going around.
The striker nerf isn't that bad, it's just the backpack.
You can crunch the numbers all you want, and you can tell people it's still viable and it's still worth using, but it doesn't matter. You've made something they loved weaker, which will always feel far worse than the objective mathematical reality of the change. And that perception matters more than the numbers of your data points. Nobody boots up a game, realizes their build is weaker after a nerf and says,
well, before I get angry or disappointed about this, I better check Twitter or YouTube to see if I'm wrong about how this doesn't actually feel good.
So what do players do when their hard-earned gear gets nerfed into oblivion? They complain loudly in the comments on forums, and most notably by simply stopping playing. Judging by recent trends, a lot of players have already chosen that route. The game has been bleeding players like an open vein since the announcement of Seasons 2.0 months ago. The devs aren't clueless, they know this would happen. What's puzzling is how comfortable they seem with losing even more players. Do they have some ace up their sleeve we're not seeing? Or are they really that out of touch with the community?
Piece of shit wristwatch.
There are always a few players who rush to defend the nerfs. I've seen plenty of get good or stop whining about your striker gear comments. And even people outright attacking others saying,
if you don't like it, go play something else.
Spoiler, this doesn't help. Unfortunately, this kind of response is all too common and it's a real problem for the developers. The remaining loyal players can often become the most unhelpful sources of feedback, especially when they're quick to attack anyone voicing criticism or dissatisfaction. It creates a toxic environment where honest feedback gets shot down and the go play something else crowd might just get their wish. The result? More players leave, fewer come back, and the cycle of frustration continues to get worse. At this rate, it won't be about consolidating servers like the last big player drop just a few months ago. They'll just shut down. And from what I'm seeing, many have already moved on. The real danger is that those players might never return. With the rising negativity combined with a toxic defense force, some may decide that the Division 2 just isn't worth their time anymore. And with so many cool games out there, can you really blame them? Community leaders who know the player base well aren't feeling optimistic either. They're saying the upcoming update won't be enough to bring players back. And honestly, they're right. The game is heavily PvE focused, and let's face it, it's a bit old. At this stage, trying to fine-tune it is like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Now, I'll admit, I'm looking forward to Seasons 2.0. But not out of a genuine excitement or because they're bringing in fresh, innovative ideas. No, these modifier ideas, they've been there, done that. Destiny, Diablo, The First Descendant. So I'm looking forward to Seasons 2.0 more out of desperation. The game hasn't had any real new content in a long time, and the last two seasons were probably some of the worst we've ever seen. Okay, so if nerfing isn't the answer, and buffing isn't either, where do we go from here?
Piece of shit wristwatch.
So if nerfing and buffing don't work, what does? Here's a hot take. Balance is boring. And in PvE, it's even more pointless. Why? Well, because the last time I checked, the Black Tusk NPCs aren't jumping on Reddit or Twitter to complain about my striker build being overpowered.
What's next? Skill-based matchmaking for the hyenas and outcasts?
What matters is how players feel, not the NPCs. When you nerf their favorite gear, it doesn't matter if the stats show it's still viable. They loved it because it felt powerful, and now it doesn't. And honestly, balance isn't just boring, it's a fool's errand. It's an ever-moving target. Every new update, weapon, or piece of content will always throw the equilibrium into chaos. So here's step one in fixing the problem. Stop chasing balance. It's not helping you, and it's not helping the game. So why not embrace the chaos instead of fighting it? So once the idea of balancing is thrown out the window, step two, Embrace the pendulum of chaos. Instead of these dull fine-tuning updates, swing for the fences. And here's the fun part, you can actually make it part of the game's lore. In a game like The Division 2, constant adjustments are unavoidable. There are just too many guns, gear sets, enemies, and content pieces to leave things static. Instead of these tiny fine-tuning patches, let's swing the pendulum wide and embrace the chaos. And the beauty is, you can make this part of the game's lore. Picture this, a new R&D station at the base of operations. Call it the DARPA station. Instead of nerfing gear because it's popular, you classify weapons and gear as experimental. Imagine getting an in-game message like, these weapons are currently in experimental classification. Then you go all in, make these guns and gear crazy, chaotic, and stand out powerful. We've already seen hints of this with global events like Golden Bullet, but take it further. This isn't about buffing or tweaking weapons. This is about embracing the chaos and giving players something wild to look forward to. And when it's time to dial things back, you simply say, we've gathered enough intel, these experimental versions are no longer available. Then you introduce a new batch of experimental gear. Maybe the theme is electricity or long-range combat. It doesn't matter. The key is keeping it fresh and unpredictable. You give players super strong busted gear on purpose, but with the understanding that it's temporary. When the next season rolls in, you tone it down and introduce new experimental chaos. You create seasons of dominance for different weapons, giving players a reason to try out new builds, experiment, and enjoy the madness. This way, you're not reacting to player behavior, you're guiding it. And the best part, it keeps the game fresh without feeling like a punishment. At the end of the day, here's my message to the devs. Stop taking your game so seriously. The Division 2 is not a competitive PvP game where balance needs to be sacred. All this fine-tuning just feels out of step with the vibe of the game and the age of it. Instead of playing whack-a-mole with popular weapons, embrace the chaos. Let players enjoy the OP weapons, give them something crazy to look forward to, and keep it fresh by rotating through different phases. You'll keep people playing and, more importantly, having fun. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Now it's time to hear yours. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Are the Division 2 devs on the right track? I'll be reading. Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
What's crack-a-lackin'?
This was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy. Now maybe this cheapskate can afford to sign me up for that dating app I've had my eyes on.
Follow me.
I get it.